The sun was a white coin nailed to the sky. Heat shimmered over the plains, rising in wavering ghosts that turned the horizon into a dream. The air smelled of iron and dust, of dry grass split by wind. Beneath an outcrop of stone, a shadow stirred, a young lion cub, smaller than a jackal, his fur clotted with burrs and sand. His breath came short, shallow, as though the world itself pressed down upon his tiny lungs. He had wandered too far from the pride. The echoes of their calls had long faded, swallowed by the vast, indifferent silence. Hunger gnawed at him, thirst burned like coals in his throat, and the wind carried only the scent of emptiness. He pressed his belly to the ground. The stone was hot, but it gave him shelter from the wind's sting. He listened, not for his mother's call now, but for something else. Something that whispered beneath the earth, deep and slow, like the heartbeat of the world itself. The cub's ears flicked. The ground trembled faintly. A sound, soft, sliding, deliberate, moved through the dust. He turned. From the cracked earth, scales rose like molten bronze catching firelight. A head, wide as a lion's paw, lifted from the ground. The eyes were golden, ancient, and impossibly still. A python. Enormous. Its tongue flickered, tasting the scent of cub and sun and death. The cub did not run. Perhaps he was too weak, or perhaps something in that gaze held him. The serpent's movement was slow, mesmerizing, deliberate, a dance of inevitability. It circled him once, twice, as if measuring, and then settled, coiling near the stone, eyes fixed upon him like small suns. For a long while, neither moved. Then, a sound broke the stillness, a distant cry, shrill and panicked. Not a predator's roar, but the desperate scream of something trapped. The cub's head lifted sharply. His small body trembled, torn between fear and curiosity. He took a hesitant step toward the sound. Then another. He glanced back. The python watched him, motionless. The cub mewed softly, a small sound that might have meant follow. And, impossibly, the python did. They traveled together, an unlikely procession, the cub stumbling through thorns and cracked roots, the python gliding behind, silent as flowing water. The sun slid lower, bleeding into orange and rust. The cry came again, closer now, thinner, more desperate. They found it near a dried riverbed, a hole where the earth had collapsed into itself, forming a shallow pit. Inside, half buried in sand, a small warthog squealed and thrashed, trapped between the roots of a fallen tree. Its eyes rolled wildly, whites flashing. Blood darkened the soil where it had struggled. The cub peered over the edge, whining softly. The warthog froze, terror-stricken. The python's shadow spilled across the ground like smoke. The trapped creature let out a high, terrified squeal. The cub flinched and turned to the serpent, making a low sound, not a growl but a plea. The python tilted its head, tongue flickering. Then, with a strength that bent the roots like reeds, it coiled around the tree's base and pulled. The wood creaked. The ground shuddered. With a tearing sound, the roots snapped, and the tree rolled aside. The warthog scrambled free, limping, trembling, then collapsed from exhaustion. The cub padded closer, nudging it gently with his head. The python, coils glistening with sand, watched from the shadow, unblinking. The cub lay beside the warthog, pressing his body against it. The little creature's heart beat like a trapped bird's. The python shifted slightly, forming a half-circle around them, as though guarding both from the open sky. When night fell, the desert came alive. Wind rose, carrying the howls of jackals and the low purr of distant leopards. The cub's fur bristled, his eyes glowing faintly in the starlight. The python lifted its head, tasting the air. Danger drifted near, fast, deliberate, a rhythm of paws over sand. A hyena. Its outline appeared over the ridge, massive shoulders rippling, eyes gleaming with hunger. It had caught the scent of blood. It padded forward, jaws parting in a grin that was almost human. The cub hissed and stood his ground. The warthog whimpered. The python rose higher, each coil tightening, lifting its head like a pillar of carved stone. The hyena slowed, uncertain. It had seen snakes before, but never one like this. The serpent hissed, deep and resonant, like wind through a canyon. The sound vibrated through the sand, through bone. The hyena faltered, ears flattening. For a heartbeat, predator met predator, then the hyena snarled once and slunk backward, melting into the dunes. Silence fell again, thick and strange. The night grew cold. Stars burned fiercely above. The cub lay between serpent and prey, small chest rising and falling, warmth returning slowly to his thin frame. The python did not move, but its body formed a barrier against the wind, scales reflecting faint starlight like broken glass. Hours passed. The warthog stirred, weak but alive. It lifted its head, sniffed the air, and limped into the darkness, disappearing into the night. The cub watched it go, tail twitching once. Then he turned to the python, eyes wide with something like gratitude, or maybe wonder. The serpent lowered its head until their gazes met. The cub touched his nose lightly to the python's jaw. For one breath, they were still, connected by something older than language. Then the python slid away, vanishing into the sand without sound, leaving the cub alone beneath the endless sky. But the story did not end there. When dawn broke, the horizon burned red. The cub awoke to the sound of voices, human voices, rough and tired, carrying the clatter of metal and the smell of smoke. A camp. He crept closer, hiding behind the tall grass. Men moved among tents and crates. One knelt near a cage where something small and trembling huddled, a baby cheetah, its leg caught in wire. The cub's ears flattened. The cheetah's cries cut through him like thorns. He did not understand men, only that they brought noise, traps, and fear. But before he could retreat, the ground shivered again. From the shadows behind the rocks, sand poured in waves. The python returned. Its body slid past him, silent, deliberate, eyes bright with purpose. It did not hesitate. The serpent moved straight toward the camp. The cub followed, heart pounding. The first man saw it too late. The python struck, not at flesh, but at the cage, smashing it apart with a single whip of its tail. Metal bent. The cheetah bolted free, darting through the grass. The men shouted, firing into the air, panic blooming like fire. The cub ran, weaving between boots and barrels, guiding the cheetah toward the open plain. Bullets tore the air above, but none found their mark. Behind them, the python's coils thrashed through the camp, scattering tents and men like leaves. And then, as suddenly as it had come, the serpent vanished, its massive form disappearing into the ravine beyond, swallowed by shadow. By the time the sun reached its height again, the cub and the cheetah rested beneath the same crooked tree where it had all begun. The cheetah's breath came fast, but steady. The cub lay beside her, eyes half closed, the echo of the serpent's presence still humming in his bones. In the distance, vultures circled the ruined camp, black wings catching light. The cub watched them silently, then turned his gaze to the horizon, where the earth shimmered like glass. He would never see the python again. But sometimes, when the wind shifted just right, the sand would move strangely, rippling as though something vast passed beneath it, watching, guarding, waiting. The cub grew in the seasons that followed. His rosettes faded, his body hardened with strength. Yet even when he learned to hunt, when blood became life and life became law, he never killed without pause. Something in him remembered the coil that saved rather than crushed, the hiss that warned instead of struck. And somewhere, deep below the earth's skin, the python slept, its golden eyes dimmed but not closed, dreaming of a world where the smallest creature could awaken mercy in the heart of the great. Some say that when the wind blows over the savannah at dusk, carrying the scent of dust and storm, if you listen closely, you can hear it. A hiss. A low, steady heartbeat. And the soft, steady footsteps of a lion, walking not toward prey, but toward memory.